All of you are keeping me busy making videos by asking great questions, so I appreciate you asking me the questions because it gives me something to talk about with you. And I'm making videos on the questions that people have that I know other people have been asking me about in the past. If you have questions about anything that you think I might know about, please feel free to comment below, ask the question, and if I can use your question and I know other people have the same question, I'll just make a video, because sometimes it's just easier to make a video than to try to type out everything I have to say. Sometimes I feel like I can write a book on any one topic, because I guess I have a lot of opinions and thoughts about certain things. Today, Sherry Woods, one of our subscribers, asked, number one, how's Cookie doing? He's doing awesome. That's our Chihuahua, by the way, for those of you who don't know. He'll be 13. I wanted to show him in today's video, but he's sleeping on the couch. The other part of Sherry's question is, maybe you could do a pros and cons of living in an apartment? Well, I'm going to do that today. I've done a video before called Pros and Cons of Renting a House versus Renting an Apartment. But today we're just talking about pros and cons of renting an apartment complex. And I'm not going to even talk about renting houses because it's a different lifestyle. If you're looking for space, a yard, you got dogs, you got kids, you want some more room and elbow room, you don't like people a whole lot, you don't want them nearby, then you probably want to rent a house. Now, for those of you who like apartment complex living, I'm going to talk a little bit about the pros and cons. When I first moved out at 18, I've lived in probably a dozen different places in the first few years I moved out, and I actually always loved apartment complexes. I know that sounds weird for many of you. We've owned houses, so I know the difference between living in a house. We lived in the country on 10 acres, so I know what it's like to live in the country. I know what it's like to live in the suburbs. I know about renting a house, and I know about renting apartment complexes. So I've done a little bit of it all. And honestly, I think it's a very, very personal decision and preference of what you like. Just like anything. I say it like in all my videos and any topic I talk about. And it's so true. It's a personal preference of what you like. And before somebody says that apartment living is a waste of money, I disagree. I say that if you know that you're going to stay in one spot for the rest of your days because you just absolutely will not move because your whole family is there, in the long term, it most likely will be less expensive to have your home if you plan on staying there forever. You take good care of it. But the problem is most people anymore, and statistics will speak and say that most people spend 7 years in a house that they purchased and then they move on. So we have to take into account when the house was bought. Was it bought at the bottom of an economy, like we bought in Northport and we made out? Or did you buy a house at the top of an economy and then it crashed like it did in 2008? If you're not moving, it doesn't matter if the economy goes up and down, because you're staying there, and hopefully you don't lose a job, hopefully you don't get sick, and all of that. That's why in another video I talk about how before buying a house, it's a good idea to have a lot of money set aside in case something does happen, that you can make those house payments. So you want to make sure you have plenty of money stored away if you're going to buy a house. Now, as far as people saying it's a waste of money, we have to take an account of the cost of owning a house. And I'm not even going to go into that whole thing because I made a video about that. If you disagree with me that apartment complex living is not the way to go, for you, it may definitely not be the way to go, because if you're definitely upset about even the topic, it's definitely not for you. And I'm okay with that. Other people are okay with it. You got to live where you should live, how you want to live. I mean, that's the thing about life. You got to do what's best for you and your family. But let's talk about pros and cons about apartment complexes. Now, there's apartments and then there's apartments, okay? There's apartments that are in the bad neighborhoods. They're moldy, they're old. They might have insects, bad customer service, bad maintenance, the place is falling apart. Well, that's not the apartment complexes that I'm talking about. I'm going to talk about apartment complexes that, one, may cost more. Well, they do. They cost more than other apartment complexes. What I usually look for are apartments that have a pool, because we are in Florida. The apartment complexes I noticed here in Florida are a bit different than apartment complexes in other areas. I will say, when I lived in Ohio and I was younger and I lived on Lake Erie, I lived in a high rise and it was absolutely wonderful back then. I had a really nice balcony. I was facing west. I watched the sunsets every night, and it didn't happen accidentally that I ended up with an apartment facing west. I specifically looked for an apartment to see the sunsets because I love the sunsets. So when you're looking for an apartment, find out exactly which apartment you want. Do you want to live in a high rise, higher up, so you could get a nice view if you have a view? Are you more worried about being on the first floor so you don't have to take an elevator or take stairs? This apartment complex, for example, does not have elevators. There's the first, second, and third floor. I actually wanted a third floor. Didn't want to hear the footsteps of the people above me because I've had experiences in the past where it sounds like a bowling ball is running across the ceiling. Now, for me personally, I don't care about little noise. I turn the TV on, I've got music on, I'm working on my computer and my videos, so some noise does not bother me. Now, screaming kids day and night, I'm not happy about that. Or people fighting and arguing, that I don't like. So for this apartment, I didn't even know we were going to end up in Pensacola. So when I did find out we were coming to Pensacola, I was still in Spain, so I couldn't even come to look at the apartment. So I was like searching for the particular location that I needed to be in so I wouldn't have to drive far. I checked the Google reviews and any other reviews I could find, and that's how I found this apartment. And thankfully, my brother, my wonderful brother, happened to be coming through Pensacola on his way back down to Sarasota County, and he stopped and looked at it and he told me it was A-OK. Well, that's when I reserved the apartment. And so far it's been really nice. A roomy 3-bedroom, 2-bath, and I am on the first floor. I did want a third floor, but what happens with a 3-bedroom, 2-bath when you really want one, they're never available. There's always a wait list, and I couldn't wait because we were coming back from Spain and I had to have an apartment ready. It worked out that we ended up on the first floor because going up and down 3 stories would not have been good with groceries, cases of water, the dog. Cookie's older now, so we have to take him out every hour to make sure he goes potty and exercises because he does have some arthritis and he gets stiff if I don't take him for his little walks every hour just to keep him moving. So it worked out that we're on the first floor. But normally I would say I would prefer the higher the better because you do hear some sound. We had somebody else when he first moved in here. I didn't hear them at all. We have new people upstairs. They make a little noise. You hear them walking a little bit, but nothing that bothers me. This apartment complex is very quiet. Nobody bothers anybody. I think it's a working class apartment complex. We have doctors living in our building. We have cadets that are here in Pensacola for the Navy. We have people who just work at the bank, and that's what I look for. I look for positive reviews, that it's quiet, that there's good management. The people are here so friendly. If I have any questions, I just go to the office and they're always smiling, and anything they can do to help you, they're there. Definitely love that. And the maintenance guys, they're super nice. If I need something, they're here. It hasn't been too much that I needed, but if I needed something, I know they're here and they're not going to roll their eyes at me. So that's something that's really important when looking for an apartment complex because it's going to be your home. You want to be comfortable, and so that's what you need to look for. Now, when you sign up for a lease, you've got, at least down here in Florida, you have options of 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 months. Not all apartments, but many offer that because they know some people come down here just for the winter snowbirds. It usually costs a bit more, depends on the apartment complex, to have that shorter lease. Usually signing for the 12 months is less expensive. So that's kind of nice. I've noticed that apartments have 2 options of getting out of your lease, and they're different depending on what apartment complex you go to. This one here gave me 2 choices. One, if I want to leave early, I pay 1 month rent, or I could have chosen where if I move out, I have to keep paying rent until they put somebody in my place. And I didn't want to take that option because if somebody doesn't take my place within a few months, I'll be paying rent every month until somebody gets here. I don't have any intention of moving out early, so hopefully that's not an issue. The other thing about apartment complexes, more and more are allowing pets, but usually it's 1 or 2 pets, and usually it's a certain breed or under a certain size, but now I'm even seeing when I'm searching more not having a size limit, but they do have a breed. So if you're a person with lots of animals, you're not going to want to rent in an apartment complex. And the thing about having pets, you have to pay an extra fee, deposit, and then you have to pay extra every month to have that pet. Per pet, I only have the one pet, and if they catch you with more than the one pet that you said you have, then you're going to be in trouble. You'll have, I don't know, all kinds of fees. I don't know if they can kick you out. I guess depends on what's in your lease. Because we live in Florida, I always look for an apartment complex that has a pool and that has a workout room. We think that people would just go outside and exercise, walk, and bike, but in the summer it gets really hot. The sun is very strong, at least in Southwest Florida. I haven't experienced summer here in Pensacola, so I can't tell you what it's like here. I'm not a fan of exercise in an exercise room because I get bored, I guess. I prefer to walk, swim, and that type of thing, and bicycle. But it's good to know that it's there for the rest of the family. And maybe I could even walk in the little treadmill if I find myself not able to walk because of the heat or rain or some other reason. But having a pool is a definite plus. But we did look at another apartment. There's like one brand new one in downtown Pensacola, because that's where I really wanted to live, but it was quite a bit more expensive and it did not have a pool. So that was a big deal, not having a pool, because you want a pool if you're going to be in Florida, if you like cooling off in the water. Not everybody likes the pool, but I do. So apartment complexes like the one we're at, where there's 3 floors, often there's not an elevator, so that would definitely be a con if the only available apartment is on the 2nd or 3rd floor and you have a bad back and you got to carry your own bags and your own stuff up and down. That could be a big problem. There's other apartments I've noticed with 3 stories, 4 stories, and they do have an elevator, so it all depends. You have to look around. I noticed too here in Florida that a lot of the apartment complexes that have the pool and workout room, it has a resort style feel. A lot of people come down here to retire and they don't want a house anymore. They don't want to cut grass. They don't want a yard. They want to be with other people. They want to meet at the pool and chit chat and then go back to their apartment and maybe meet up again and have a beer by the pool, or if they allow it, depending on which apartment complex you're in. The first apartment that we moved to in Sarasota was really nice because we met like 3 or 4 different people from Ohio and then other states and other countries, and we would meet up at the pool. We'll say, see you tomorrow. A lot of time these apartments have community gatherings. So if you're not into people, you don't want to be around people, then no, apartment complexes are not for you. But if you like to meet up with people, but you don't really want them in your apartment complexes are perfect because you just meet down at the pool. Or some apartment complexes have nice lobbies where there's a pool table, ping pong table, different things like that, or where you could sit and have coffee. I really like that because, like I said, you still have your own privacy in your apartment. You don't need to invite people into your apartment if you don't want to. You could just meet out in the community area, and it's a really nice life, I think. I wouldn't mind living in a downtown area, as I mentioned before, like downtown Miami or downtown Tampa, St. Petersburg, some other city in Florida. And I have looked at apartments on the internet in those other cities, and often those bigger cities have even more options as far as apartments go. There are more apartments for starters, and within those apartments there's a lot of more options. Like I said, there's pool tables, ping pong tables, there's like kitchens where you can have a potluck dinner where people actually cook together. How cool is that? Especially as I get older, and those of you who know me, I don't like to drive, so being in a city would be pretty awesome. I could pretty much walk everywhere, and then even if I couldn't walk anywhere, the complex itself has their community gatherings, and that would be enough for me. So I really do think it's your personality as far as if it's a pro or con to even live in an apartment complex, how old you are. If you're young, just starting out, you don't have kids, you're single, you might love it. But once you start having kids, you might want more space, you might want more room, you might not want to be in the city. People usually end up going out to the suburbs. It all depends on what you're looking for. I do notice most apartments have carpeting, maybe because it's more affordable, but at least I know in the bigger cities that there are apartments that have the wood floors or tile floors. Usually it's wood floors in apartment complexes that have several stories. Sometimes the first floor might have tile. I prefer that because carpeting can accumulate smells and dust and who knows what. It's cooler. I definitely noticed when we had our house and we had tile, it just keeps the house cooler than carpeting. Carpeting, I think, is probably pretty good for up north. And if you live near the beach or you go to the beach often, you track in the sand, and not to mention Florida is basically built on a lot of sand, so that gets into your home or apartment. So I do like where there's no carpeting, but it's very, very hard to find. They're usually only found in luxury apartments, higher end apartments, and even then the bedrooms have carpeting. That drives me nuts. Why would you put tile throughout the whole apartment and then have carpeting in the bedrooms? If I really wanted carpeting in my bedroom to keep my feet warm, I would just put one of those throw rugs. At least I can lift it or throw it out or shake it or whatever. But I personally wouldn't have any carpeting in anywhere in my apartment if it was up to me. So that's a con for me, is not being able to choose not to have carpeting in my apartment. If they don't offer it, then I'm stuck with carpeting like we have now. So we had to buy a vacuum cleaner because we didn't have any reason to have a vacuum cleaner before. I should probably do a review on our Shark vacuum cleaner. It's a very good one. I hate vacuum cleaners because none of them ever suck up the dirt and the dust and the hair. But this one here is like super vacuum. So maybe I'll just do a whole video on that Shark vacuum cleaner another day. The other thing, which is a con I think, is wanting to pick that perfect apartment. I'm so picky when it comes to where exactly I want to be. And in this case, I couldn't pick exactly where I wanted to be, but it turned out it was where I wanted to be. I'm just so grateful that I ended up on the first floor. If I were to end up in a downtown somewhere in a city, I'm going to want to be up in the high rise where I have a really good view of the city. I don't want to be facing a brick wall at another building. Usually those apartments are less expensive, so if you don't care about your view, then you would get something like that. It'd be less expensive. But I personally, since I work from home, I like having a balcony, and not all apartments have balconies, so I always pick an apartment complex with a balcony, with a view. So it's really up to you how picky you are. I try to make sure I'm not facing the dumpster or something like that, or a playground where I know it's going to be really noisy. But the problem is, even though you want the spot that you want, it may not be available, especially a 3-bedroom, 2-bath. So there's a wait list. So if you know you're going to move ahead of time and you know exactly where you want to live, I would definitely reserve that apartment ahead of time if you can, especially if you think it's going to be hard to get into, because you never know when people are going to move out. The apartment complex knows when their lease is up, but sometimes people renew their lease, so they're not going to kick them out to let you move in. The apartment complex has to wait to see if the people are moving out, and if so, if you're on the waiting list, then hopefully you can get in to get that apartment that you want. And sometimes what you do too is you just get into that apartment complex, you live a year in the apartment you are in, put yourself on the waiting list, and if something becomes available as far as where exactly you want to be, they'll let you move to that apartment. But that's something you should ask ahead of time when you're signing that lease. This apartment complex told me if I wanted to move into the 3rd floor, if one became available, a 3-bedroom, 2-bath, I would have to pay an extra month rent or something. I don't remember what the details were, but I would have to pay extra. I told them never mind because I'm perfect where I am for this year. The con about apartment complexes is that you can't just paint your apartment whatever color you want. So you can't just decide you want a purple wall and you paint your apartment. You can't change your carpeting, or like I said, put tile floor in or make it your own. Of course, you could put your own furniture and hang your own things that you want on the wall, but you can't be taking out different refrigerators, putting a bigger refrigerator or a different stove or any of that. Now, for me, I like neutral walls, so that doesn't bother me. Yes, the carpeting bothers me. I got a brand new glass top stove, so we're pretty lucky with that. Yes, the countertops are chipped. I don't care for them. They need to be replaced. The carpeting needs to be replaced in my opinion, but I'm only here a year. And like I said, it's in a perfect location. I can walk to stores. It's a large apartment. I have this little tiny office. It's not big at all, but it's enough for me to come here and make these videos. And if you're wondering why I'm not out there showing you videos, it's because it's been cold or rainy. So I'm waiting for the nice weather to come so I could drive around and explore some more and show you what we're looking at. Rainy, cloudy videos aren't very good to show you anything. So here I am in my office. So I'm just answering your questions, making these videos. So again, if you have more questions, just ask me. If I can make a video, I will. I always can use some suggestions as far as videos, especially when I can't get out there. If you're wondering where to search for apartments, I personally go to forrent.com, apartmentguides.com, apartments.com, and then after I find what I'm looking for, I use the filters. I put 3-bedroom, 2-bath, pets allowed. I usually put luxury because they usually have everything that I'm looking for, even though they're not really luxury. They're often not luxury. But I put that in there so I can at least get the nicer apartments, because I personally need to have a newer apartment because the older ones, especially in Florida, can have mold, and even the ones that look really nice on the internet, if you go into them in person, often you could smell the mold. I have like a super bionic nose so I could smell it in 2 seconds. I get this vertigo if there's mold in the building, and that happened to us back in Ohio when we were building our house on the 10 acres. We were in this one apartment and they had painted over the mold, and I was bedbound for months because of the vertigo. It was so bad, and I couldn't figure it out until one day when the black mold was coming through the wall, and I was like, oh my gosh. And we got out of that lease into another apartment. The bad thing, we were in the country and there was like 2 apartments, that one and another one, which was just this tiny little place. And that's the problem with some places. There's just not a lot of apartments to choose from. When you move to higher populated cities, areas, you'll have more options to choose from. The last thing I want to say about apartments would be about the location. You know the saying, location, location, location. Just like houses, the houses that are in really great locations near shopping and museums and the beach and all of that, those prices are higher. Same with apartments. If you're in a really good location in a downtown area where you could walk next to the grocery store, walk to the hospital, walk to the museums, walk to the beach, but the prices are up. You got pros and cons on that. When you're living in a place like that where you can walk everywhere, you don't need extra cars in your family if you're not working or you work from home especially, or you could walk to work or take a bus to work or an Uber where everything's very close, or you just don't have to sit in traffic for a half an hour to get to work, or an hour. A lot of people do that where they live outside the city, so you kind of have to weigh that. If you're single or just a couple, you can live in a smaller apartment and still live in the city. You know, that could be very beneficial, so you don't have to be driving everywhere. But the bigger your family is, the more space you're going to need, and then it gets very expensive to live in the city, and that's why people have to move outside the city and do the drive. It's a catch-22. It's a pretty tricky situation, so you have to figure out what you can afford, what you prefer, what you like, what you don't like, and just go from there. It's very important that you check those reviews. I like to look at the negative reviews, not just all the positive ones, even though it might have a 4.5 star. I do like to see what the negative people are saying. Is it something that wouldn't bother me anyhow? Or is it something that would really bother me, even though it's just a few people saying something? So it gives me an idea what the apartment's like. The good, bad, and the ugly. I hope that helps a little bit, just talking about it. Sometimes talking out loud about these things kind of makes your brain, maybe I have nothing new to tell you, but sometimes it makes your brain start thinking about things that you may not have thought of. So I hope this helps. Thumbs up if you like. Please share. Don't forget to subscribe. And don't forget to live a passionate life.